On this episode of the Hanford Insider, we'll hear from Superintendent of the Hanford Joint Union High School District, Victor Rosa, and Assistant Superintendent Bobby Peters about the efforts to balance Hanford High, Hanford West, and Sierra Pacific High Schools. Rob will highlight some of this week's community events, and later I'll be back with your sports report. This is the Hanford Insider for Monday, January 26th.
Welcome back to the Hanford Insider Podcast. Before we jump in, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you to our listeners, our supporters, financial supporters, and everyone who believes in sharing the stories of our community. Last week's episode on the courthouse renovations quickly shot up to be one of the top episodes that I have ever posted. Today's episode is number 130, so that's saying a lot. Your encouragement and support mean more to me than you know, and I'm grateful to have you along for the journey. Now let's get started. In community news, now that Winter Wonderland is concluded, Civic Park is undergoing landscape repairs and will be ready for spring activities. Rumors have been circulating online about how the repairs are being paid for, but if you remember in some of my earlier interviews with Brad Albert, all of the costs to get the park back into shape are included in the Winter Wonderland budget. There was talk of hardscaping the area where the ice rink is, but that discussion has been tabled for another year to get more input from the community as to a long-term solution. The Hanford City Council met last week, and during the afternoon study session, they received a comprehensive report of the Landscape Assessment District fund balances and how they plan to inform the residents of how they can improve their neighborhood by raising their annual taxes to pay for the neighborhood landscape to be maintained. There's a special council corner with Councilman Travis Payton and Public Works Director Russ Sterling on Wednesday night at Me and Ed's on 10th Avenue from 4:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. This would be a great opportunity to ask your questions about the landscape assessment districts, and this is what Travis Payton had to say about this event.
Well, thank you, Rob, for giving me the opportunity to share with you about Council Corner for the residents of District A. I'd just like to invite everyone to our monthly Council Corner, which is happening this Wednesday, January 28th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at Me and Ed's Pizza located on the corner of 10th Avenue and Fargo Avenue. We will have pizza and drinks available for anyone who attends, and we're pleased to have Public Works Director Russ Sterling and Deputy Director Alvin Diaz joining us. They will be available to discuss the landscape assessment districts in the northern part of Hanford, as well as several upcoming projects planned for the north side of Hanford, including the area around 12th Avenue and Fargo. We'll also provide an update on items that happened at our most recent City Council meeting. But most importantly, this event is about listening and hearing directly from you and having an open conversation about the issues that matter most to our community. So once again, please join us this Wednesday, January 28th, from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at Me and Ed's Pizza on the corner of 10th Avenue and Fargo. We hope to see you there. Thanks, Rob.
In the evening study session, the council approved a new mixed-use development on the northeast corner of Grangeville Boulevard and 9 1/4 Avenue, across from Freedom Park. Home builder Lennar is planning for 650 homes, an apartment complex, and a potential strip mall fronting Grangeville Boulevard. City Attorney Ty Mazzotti announced at the meeting that an offer has officially been made to Chris Tavares to become our new city manager. He has accepted the offer and will officially be sworn in on Thursday, February 5th at 5 p.m. at the Hanford Civic Auditorium. Now let's take a look at this week's community calendar. Sierra Pacific High School is presenting the Prince of Egypt at the Presentation Center this weekend. For details and tickets, visit spband.org. The Charm House is hosting a Valentine's Vendor Fair on Saturday, January 31st. Find out more at thecharmhousevenue.com. The Little Brick Theater is hosting their Whatever Open Mic Night on Friday, February 6th. Visit their website at hanfordmtc.com for more information. Looking ahead to June, the Carnegie Museum of Kings County announced this week that registration is now open for their 5th annual Downtown Hanford Car Show on June 6th. There are 15 car and truck categories. This year, there's a new horseless carriage category and a lowrider category. There's also going to be a bike show that will include pedal cars, strollers, lowrider bikes, remote control cars, and models. You can find out more and register now at carnegiecarshow.com. If you have an event coming up, large or small, and you'd like some help getting the word out, let's work together. Send your information to hanfordinsider@gmail.com. There are lots of community events coming up in February, so be sure to subscribe to my weekly newsletter to get a complete calendar of events. It's the most comprehensive community calendar available. Well, if you've lived in Hanford for any period of time, you know the history of Hanford High School, over 100 years old. And then we added the West Campus in the 60s, and students were split between the two campuses. Hanford West came along, and they're on Lacey Boulevard when the West Campus converted to a full comprehensive high school. And it seems not that long ago that Sierra Pacific High School was opened out on 13th Avenue, if you can believe that. And with me today, I have the superintendent of the Hanford Joint Union High School District, Mr. Victor Rosa, and Bobby Peters, who is the assistant superintendent of educational services. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Rosa, Hanford has grown. We've got a lot of things going on, and the high school district has had quite a challenge of balancing all of the enrollment. And today we're going to talk about some of the new enrollment trends and some of the requirements for proof of residency, which has become a topic here in early 2026. So let's go ahead and start with just an overall evaluation of the enrollment trends in the schools.
Sure. Well, as a district, we have seen steady growth, not tremendous growth, but growth. And at least in the 7 years that I've been here, we've had growth. We've been lucky for that since there's a declining enrollment in a lot of other communities. And we do expect there to be a little bit of a lull coming as well for us, as our feeder districts have smaller classes coming forward. But for us, our attendance boundaries have not changed. This is my 7th year here. Our actual attendance boundaries have remained the same, I'm assuming, for at least since Sierra Pacific. So that's going now, I think, on 14 years that's been in existence. And those attendance boundaries still work for us. The lines are drawn. It creates a very equitable distribution of students for our community. And the reason for us going forward with more proof of residency is, as a community, more and more people have sort of stretched the rules and bent the truth a little bit as far as where they live and the feeling that I can attend wherever I'd like to attend versus attending the school that is within my attendance boundary. So we're just really enforcing what's been in place for a long time now.
So, Bobby, you've been a teacher at Hanford West, and you're in the administration role now. What kind of patterns have you seen?
It's interesting to look now. As you said, I started teaching at Hanford High West Campus back in the day in the 90s and transitioned to a teacher at Hanford West High School, and then eventually became principal of Hanford West High School. And so I was principal at Hanford West before Sierra Pacific came along, and it was still a struggle for me as a principal because we weren't Hanford High. And so we really had to do our best to market our school as equal, if not better, in my opinion, at that point, than Hanford High to get students over, because there was really loose boundaries at that time. It was pretty much at that time you could go wherever you wanted. And I think that's what it kind of stumbled its way into where we're at now. It's very similar. When Sierra Pacific came on, I think it was my 2nd year as principal, maybe 3rd year as principal. I can't quite remember. But as people will remember, Sierra Pacific came on with only a freshman class. And at that time, hard to believe, but there was very few houses in the, quote unquote, Sierra Pacific boundary at the time. And so quite literally, anyone that wanted to go to Sierra Pacific got a free pass to go. And so it kind of established this idea or norm that anybody could transfer to Sierra Pacific, because it went on for, I want to say 3 to 5 years, because they really couldn't get enough students there to fill the school. And so it was literally any transfer would get granted for really no reason. And so, as we started to really enforce, like, no, you should really live in the boundaries, it created, people were questioning, well, that's not the way it's always been. And really, we laxed the boundaries for quite a time so that they could actually fill the school. And now that we look at now, it's like the opposite. We have so many homes in that area, the school is very full. Hence the new construction.
So, Victor, about that construction, the city of Hanford is actively looking at some of these developments, north, south, east, west, all over town. And I would imagine getting this process in place as subdivisions are coming online is going to only help going down the line, yeah?
It absolutely will. It gives us a little bit of time. If you're not aware, we are constructing a new wing at Sierra Pacific, which will, in essence, almost allow Sierra Pacific to from a student population size to be almost as big as Hanford High. But we can give an example. When Bobby was principal at Hanford West, there were nearly 2,000 students at Hanford West. So it's not like there isn't room at Hanford West as well. We've got plenty of room on our sites overall. With that being said, this is the first year in a few years that Hanford High we consider full. From a classroom perspective, it's full. Sierra Pacific is beyond full. It has our largest class sizes of any of our schools. It has the least amount of space and the least amount of teachers for what's turning into the highest number of students. So in essence, that just creates larger class sizes. And with all the construction that's going on at Sierra Pacific, we realize that that new wing is absolutely necessary to be able to deal with that growth. But growth is happening in Hanford West. We have a lot of housing developments in Hanford West, and very soon we'll have more housing developments going into what Hanford High's area is, enough to the point where we are, at least internally discussing, it's time to buy another piece of land. We really, we don't want to just all retire and leave it, throw it to the wolves. We want to make sure that the next generation of administrators in our district at least have a piece of property. I can't imagine having a fourth high school for probably another, 12 to 15 years, but that process takes a long time. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at that growth. We would love all of our schools to be somewhat balanced in that, 1,700 student range. And then really start looking at the next problem for the next generation is then where do we redraw the lines when high school number 4 comes down?
High school number 4. It's hard to believe we're even talking about that, but I know from experience those things do take years and years of planning. So appreciate you doing that. So let's get to the matter at hand, and that is it's not a new policy, but it's kind of a revamped policy of how you make sure students are where they need to be to make sure that all of your schools flourish. So let's review this a little bit about this proof of residency and how it works.
Sure. So again, our boundary lines have not changed. There's a joke among the superintendent world that, if you want to lose your job quickly, change your attendance boundaries. And it tends to align very closely. For us, again, it's just we made some brief changes to what we are accepting as far as proof of residence goes. And then looking at some documents as far as shared residence affidavits, which really means that, it's homeless, but the state's version of homeless, not necessarily homeless on the street, caregiver affidavits and that sort of thing. But the bottom line is we just added 3 areas, and you have to provide one proof from each of those 3 areas. So first you need an ID to prove who you are. And that's one proof. And then we go down the road to be either a car registration or a W-2. We get down into tax documentation or mortgage or a lease agreement, and then we get into the utilities. So it really breaks down and starts looking at documents that you would hope are a little harder to fake. But in reality, we've started to see a few fakes even in that respect.
Let's talk about that, because you had mentioned earlier about even with AI now, people are able to create documents that look authentic.
It's interesting, and not to interrupt, but it's interesting because last year is when we started noticing this. And I think the big answer here is, well, why are you guys doing this now? And really because we started seeing this last year, and if not the year before, that you could start to see the fraudulent documents coming in, that were manipulated by Adobe. Now with AI, we're starting to see AI. We weren't seeing that a few years ago, but you're starting to see the manipulation of these documents. And it's really easy to, email a document over or something like that. But having these in person, like we're doing now, makes it a little more difficult to do some of those things when you can actually see the document. It's not a copy. It's something that actually someone has to bring to you. Victor didn't mention, and all of the addresses have to match. You'd be surprised at how many addresses don't match for multiple documentations for where people live. So making sure that all those things are in place as well.
And these live nights have been interesting. It's really has been eye-opening.
I've enjoyed it.
I
like being out there to see a lot of people, a lot of students.
Live nights.
It's great.
What is it?
So basically, we, as Bobby sort of mentioned, we for the last several years have accepted all of the documentation electronically for proof of residence.
So feeder schools would just send over all of the information, and we basically took it for whatever they sent. And so then we started seeing some changes, things happening.
Yeah. And so we changed it this year to actual physical nights. So we had our first one at Hanford High, the second one was at Sierra Pacific, the third one was at Hanford West. Tomorrow is our first district makeup. Next week we have another district makeup. And it's an inconvenience to parents, we understand, but all of those 8th grade parents are needing to bring the documentation. It needs to align with what we have in our system. So our system says that this address, you're a student of Hanford High School, but all of the documentation that you brought us says that you're a student of Hanford West High School. So what's the difference here? What changed? And then it allows us to clean up our system. And this is just one step. A lot of people came through that night, and if we're being really honest, we looked at the paperwork and said, okay, great, thank you. But we know that paper, there's something wrong with that paperwork. And so I guess the reality of that is that's only step one to our process. I think that our community needs to have an understanding that just because you ran a document through ChatGPT and edited the address doesn't mean that once it gets into our computer system that it's not going to notice the error, because it does. We go back and look at addresses for all of the previous years. There's something called CalPads. So we get to see what your address was in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And lo and behold, a lot of those addresses get changed in 8th grade because people got wise to our system being electronic. I'm going to change my kid's address at the beginning of their 8th grade year. And then the high school is going to assume that this kid goes to Hanford West or to Sierra Pacific based on that. Well, our system now catches all of those things. In addition to that, we're able to check through the assessor's office and just see who actually lives at this residence. And we've come to find there were open fields where it was, this is my address, or some sort of shack, or it was a business, that clearly didn't have a resident there. But moreover, that's something that our system now is able to catch is multiple families using the same address. Mm-hmm. And that is really so I think people understand, yes, we're asking for this next level of documentation, but internally our system is much, much smarter than it used to be. And we are able to find those errors. And just because you got through that night doesn't mean you're not going to be getting a call in the next few weeks to say, look, we need further proof. In addition to that, we've been laughing about a lot of these things. We have a tip line now, and it's an anonymous tip line through Stop It. And I've been amazed at the number of contacts that we've had of people saying, this is Johnny whoever, and here's a screenshot of their house. This is where they live. I don't know what they're telling you, but this is where they live.
The detail is, I mean, I think we all know, everybody here grew up in Hanford. And I mean, it's different than when we grew up, but still people know. I mean, when your kids were growing up, you knew who their friends were, you knew where they lived. And so it's like, it's not a surprise that people are going to say that's not where you should be going to school. And it's been interesting reading all the Stop Its that come through of the amount of detail that is involved in where they live, who really owns the house, how they got it fixed. It's amazing.
And we're investigating those as they come through. We're investigating them further, and we're finding, unfortunately, through the processes of doing this, where whether they're brand new neighborhoods or whatever the case may be, where you're seeing fake lease agreements, you're seeing fake rental agreements, and some of those are not AI generated. They are generated by people who live and work within our community, and those are the really, really difficult conversations to have. It's like, hey, this has to stop. And I get everyone's trying to do a favor for their friend and or whatever the case may be, but it really does hurt us.
So with all of this enforcement, kind of a new way of looking at proof of residency, I would imagine you get a lot of questions. Why now? How is this going to impact my child's ability to play a certain sport at a certain school, or music, or a certain academy that, it's going to have an impact. And I would be curious, just the both of you, maybe state, what do you feel are the goals of this program? And why? How will it have an impact in the classroom?
I think, my personal opinion, there needs to be balance among the schools, and the listeners can take balance however they want. You can fill in any metric in there that you want, but I think we need to have balance in our schools, and that can be on the athletic field, it can be in the classroom, it can be in band, it can be in choir, it can be in whatever you want it to be. But when you start to see a shift so hard to, a certain program or a certain school, it starts to create imbalance. And then with that imbalance, it's hard to swing back. And so you're almost like the one school may never, ever have that opportunity to have that great baseball team, have that great water polo team, because the students are gravitating towards a school that's already found that success, and it's really hard to get that balance back. And I just think that to create, I guess my goal is always to create the best possible situation we can at every single school. I mean, and the role I fall in is with education. And so I'm always trying to make sure that it's balanced across the board. And I think a lot of that has to do with students and families. I mean, all of it factors in. And if we're letting people choose or creating, we are contributing to the imbalance of that, it's not good for that school site. And we need to make sure that we are doing our best to make sure that there is balance of all different types of students, so that we can have, I'm trying to stay away from the word equitable, but an equitable balance of students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Once we put out information about this, it made it onto social media, and there were some, concerns from people. And some of the comments were, well, why don't all the schools just offer the same thing, and then we wouldn't have an issue? And the reality is our schools all do, for the most part. We offer the same athletics at all of our schools. We do have, based on size, some schools that are in different leagues. And so that's part, but all of our athletics are the same. Our clubs are the same on all of our campuses. Our academic programs are the same. The only few unique ones that we have are the Medical Academy at Hanford West and HJUHSD at Hanford West. Those are unique to that school, but also the school that we are allowing students to transfer to. So no student is going to get denied a transfer to be able to go to HJUHSD. It is a lottery for the Med Academy, but your chances are pretty good. And the only other unique program is the Business Academy at Sierra Pacific. But we have business classes at all of our schools. So we really do, for the most part, offer the same thing at all of our sites. Students are going to have the same experience, whether it's an athletic experience, extracurricular type of experience. They have the opportunity regardless of where they go.
I mean, just to further that too, is sometimes we do get that. I mean, because we do have some other courses that aren't exactly the same at every school site. But when we talk about the CTE, Career Technical Education programs, they're expensive. They're extremely expensive. And sometimes it's hey, it's more bang for your buck. We're going to put it at one school. We're going to build it up. We're going to create a great shop with this program. And then we'll go to another school with a great program over here. And it's and some of that, it's about being fiscally smart and making sure that we can provide these opportunities and not always replicating everything at every single school site. But academically, it's I mean, we work really hard at making sure it's the same.
And where we don't have, say we have an AP class that's only offered at one campus because there aren't enough students between all three of our schools to fill, we'll bus kids to make that happen. So we provide every opportunity for kids to have that opportunity.
And even and there's even been in situations where there's a CTE course, and maybe it's like, and usually the ones we're talking about, they're advanced, so it's like a junior or senior course. We've bused kids over for those. I mean, it's not that we don't do these things for kids. We just want to make sure that, that they have the opportunity to do it.
But again, what we're hoping to achieve is, again, that balance that Bobby spoke to. And I think part of it is also working with our community and education. We're not a unified district. All we can control is what we can control. We have 7 feeder districts that feed into us. 7? Yeah.
7.
That we work with. And, some of those are charter districts. And so the nature of those charter districts are they have schools from all throughout the community. They're all over. And then 8th grade comes around, and now these kids are going to get divided. And that is really, really difficult for parents to accept. It's difficult for students to accept. It's like, but my best friend is going to Hanford High or this or whatever the case may be. I went to Lakeside School, and back then everybody either went to Hanford West for their freshman, sophomore year and then to Hanford High. But regardless of where you came, you were still terrified. Now we're going to be there with the Woodrow kids and the Pioneer kids and all those kids. Well, I think to some degree, parents are really trying to be protective. They want their kids to be with their friends. We've perpetuated the problem to some degree, but that's what we hope for. We hope that parents understand if you're going to be going into a charter district, having that understanding from the get-go. When you're looking at your next house purchase or where you're going to move, that understanding that this means something. It's not as loose as it used to be. If I'm moving here, this is the school that I'm going to be attending. If I'm choosing to go into a charter program, I have to understand that my kid's still going to go to school based on where we live, not on the elementary they attended. So those are the things that over time we're just hoping to tighten up a little bit. Yeah,
and even like we've talked about it before too, but the rise of these club teams, basketball, football, water polo. I mean, it's baseball, it's everything you can imagine. And as much as we try to not encourage aligning with one of our high schools, because you're just creating a problem. You have this, I'll use, my kids played water polo. We have this water polo team that's aligned themselves with, they're the Golden Bear Water Polo Club. And they're like, well, we're not part of that Sierra Pacific. And you're like, well, you kind of are. You're wearing green and gold and you're called the Golden Bears. And so the kids and the families are like, well, that's where my kid's going to go play water polo. Anthony's been out at practice and, we're good. And it's like, but you live in Hanford High and, so it's like, or Lemoore, yeah, or Riverdale, or, but it's like, we have to remember all those things as parents is like all those are great opportunities. But when we move to the high school setting, that may change, and like I would say, it'd probably be better if you're looking for those programs, start early where you live, align with where you might go, likelihood you live here, align with that program and make it the best it can be. I mean, the more people that get involved in a program that believe in it, the better it's going to be.
Well, you guys certainly have your hands full. And I, being a resident of the district and a former student of the district, I appreciate the efforts that you're making to make things even across the board, because it has been years and it has been a concern for many people in the community of how this was all being done. And now that you're taking it to the next level as far as asking for different methods of identification for proof of residency, I think is going to benefit the students in the classroom, on the field, in the pool, in the gyms, everywhere. And so I know you've put out a ton of information about this to the people that live in your district, but if someone had questions, what's the best way to get a hold of you if they still have questions about this process?
Well, I'm always going to point them to our website first, which is www.HJUHSD.org. And if you hit on the superintendent's tab, you're going to find all the information about residency. Not only that, you'll find contact information for myself, for assistant superintendents. principals, anyone you need, you'll be able to email directly from there or call us directly. And we're happy to answer questions. Our district office is open every day. Happy to have people come in and just ask questions and get clarification.
Yeah, and we have people bring down documentation, and we take them through it and get them to the right school, and all good.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
And now it's time for Hanford Insider Sports with Eric Bentley.
We'll start with basketball, where both Sierra Pacific Hoops teams found success last week. The girls pushed their winning streak up to 4 and improved to 3-1 in league play, with dominating victories over Selma and Kerman, while the boys took down Selma and Hanford West to improve to 2-2 in league action. A big matchup this week for both Golden Bears teams, hosting Emmanuel on Wednesday before the boys traveled to Kingsburg on Thursday, while the girls play at home versus Hanford West on Friday. It was a mixed bag of results for both Hanford High basketball teams last week. The girls fell to league-leading Mission Oak on Wednesday before snapping their 10-game skid and avenging their earlier season loss to Lemoore with a 37-34 victory. The Hanford High boys improved to 3-2 in WYL action with double-digit victories over Mission Oak and Lemoore before falling in non-league action to North from Bakersfield on Saturday. League action continues for both teams this week at Dinuba on Tuesday and home versus Tulare Union on Thursday, before Saturday non-league play with the boys taking on East Union at Manteca and the girls facing Kingsburg. And the struggle continues for both Hanford West basketball teams as the girls fell to Exeter and Emmanuel last week, while the boys lost to Kerman and Sierra Pacific. This week, the girls will be at Selma and Sierra Pacific, while the boys take on Reedley and Washington Union. In soccer action, it's 6 wins in a row for the Sierra Pacific boys after a 2-0 triumph over Hanford West last week bolstered their league record to a perfect 4-0 on the year. This week, a showdown with Kerman awaits on Monday before a league tilt with CVC on Wednesday. The Sierra Pacific girls played Reedley and Kerman to draws last week and will look for their first result in league play this week against CVC and Hanford West with a Saturday showdown with Kingsburg. The Hanford High girls soccer team continued their dominant ways last week, shutting out Mission Oak and Hanford West by a combined score of 10-0. At 11-2-2 overall and 4-1 in league play, the Bullpups will travel to Dinuba on Tuesday before hosting league-leading Tulare Western on Thursday. The Hanford High boys played Mission Oak to a draw last week and then fell to Lemoore and will look for their first league win this week with matchups versus Dinuba and Tulare Western. And neither Hanford West soccer team was able to come up with a result last week. This week, the boys will take on Emmanuel and Washington Union, while the girls face off with Exeter and Sierra Pacific. As always, if you have a score report or a team update from any level, you can let us know by emailing hanfordinsider@gmail.com. I'm Eric Bentley, and this has been your Hanford Insider Sports Report.
And that wraps up things for this week's show. Next week, we'll take a look into the rich history of a longtime building that is probably best known for housing Mecaño's Bakery, but it's had many interesting uses over the time. Make sure you tune in. If you enjoy this podcast and you'd like to show your support, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Hanford Insider to make a donation. If you'd like to join the Hanford Insider email list, stop by my website at hanfordinsider.com to sign up for updates. You'll also get an exclusive copy of my newsletter in your inbox each Wednesday. I also need your help getting the word out about the show by liking and sharing on social media, or like most people, just telling a friend. For more information about the show, you can find this podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, and YouTube at Hanford Insider. If you have a show idea, be sure to email me at hanfordinsider@gmail.com and I'll look into it. Thanks for being a part of the Hanford Insider Podcast family. Have a fantastic week.